Hello friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another this and that video. And for those who are new, basically my this and that video is just basically a weekly vlog that I do, talking about some of the different things that are going on, answering a few questions while I'm here, and directing you to other videos on how you can make various things, and showing you some of my new experiments that I have. So the first one I want to talk about is the new vinegar that I started this week. And so this, it doesn't look very pretty, so I'll show it to you here close up. This is, it looks pretty ugly, doesn't it? But what this is a garlic oregano vinegar. And I tell you what, it smells really good. And though I'll tell you why I'm making this. Now, you may have seen my video on my chicken care, my natural chicken care, and I was talking about putting vinegar in the chicken's water and how garlic is also very good for them, and oregano at helping to kill and prevent pests, you know, parasites and things like that. So I figured, well, why not just make a garlic oregano vinegar and then just put that in their water, just like that. I thought that would be a pretty good idea. But I tell you what, this smells really good. So I'm thinking it may work really great for an Italian salad dressing. So I might use some of it for that. And anyway, what I did was I took, since my garlic that's currently growing this year is not quite ready yet to harvest, what's in here is some of last year's garlic that I never finished getting around to peeling and all that. It was still hanging, drying, and nor did I ferment it. So I got that in there. I left the peels on and all. I just processed them in the blender with a little bit of water, and because this is going to be strained out anyway. And then I picked some fresh oregano and put it in there, and then did find a little bit of fermented garlic from last year. There was a little bit left. I thought I'd used it all up, but then I found that little bit and I threw that in there with it too. And so, and then added my sugar and my water, the sugar, because you have to have the sugar for it to become vinegar. It's not going to become vinegar without sugar, because the yeast is going to convert the sugar into vinegar. So it has to have sugar of some kind in there in order for it to do that. So that is what that is for. And yeah, anyway, so I thought that would be interesting to give it a try. And you know me, I'm always trying different types of vinegars, making things up as I go, such as making it out of cedar or juniper. Now we don't have a cedar tree anymore, but we still have our juniper. So I'll still be making juniper vinegar from time to time, because it makes a nice smelling, great cleaning type vinegar. But sometimes it doesn't always turn out, and I think it could be because if you get too much of the plant material in there, it can actually prevent, because of what juniper does, it can actually prevent the microbial activity that needs to go on in order for it to become vinegar. So anyway, moving on, since we're talking about fermented stuff, I want to show you my latest smoothie that I made. I've got a lot of blueberries and currants coming in. So some of what I'm doing with it is I made a fermented blueberry currant smoothie. And it's just something I like to do this time of the year when I have fresh fruit coming in. I'm not usually a big smoothie person, but if I'm going to have a fermented drink anyway, I might as well have the whole fruit. I've got the whole fruit. I'm going to use it. I don't really get into juicing things very often, simply because, you know, I think getting that whole fruit with the fiber and all that good stuff in there is really, really important. And you're just missing a lot of goodness when you just juice your fruit. And so I like to make a smoothie out of it. And anyway, so it's fermented. You can see it's very bubbly, and I can show you a picture right here, because pictures always look better than the video, a good still shot that is. And you know, there it is, poured into the glass, and very tasty and very healthy. And so when you're fermenting your things like that, I actually did a video last year of making the same type of smoothie, and I'll go ahead and link to it up here. And when you're letting it ferment, don't be afraid of adding the sugar in there, because as it ferments, the more sugar that you got in there, the more you can let it ferment. But you add that sugar in, just use a regular cane sugar, and the bacteria and the yeast in there are going to convert it into something more healthy. So don't be afraid of that sugar when you're talking about something like this. And then since I was at it and I got the fresh blueberries and currants, and here's the interesting thing, is the blueberries float to the top and the currants stay at the bottom. So I've got stripes So anyway, I decided to start a new fermentation starter. I noticed that my blueberry fermentation starter always takes longer for it to get going. It usually takes longer than 3 days. And other people have said the same thing when they've made a blueberry fermentation starter, but here's what I found, is that it lasts the longest. It seems to have, my last blueberry one lasted the whole year, and I finally tossed it, and I threw the berries that had been there for the whole year. They weren't rotten, they were fermented, they were great. Threw them out to the chickens, and they loved them. And so next year I'll probably be doing the same with these. I'm going to add a few more currants and blueberries in here as I go, because I actually want quite a bit in there. And but yeah, I just keep it going all year round and don't have any problems. You just have to make sure you feed it periodically if you're not using it on a regular basis, and then keep it refrigerated. Then it's going to last even longer. It will last. It used to be when I made my different starters, I started off doing the standard ginger bug that a lot of you may have heard about. That's where I got the idea, and decided I wanted to try other things because ginger around here is really expensive and I haven't been able to grow it well yet. What I was doing was just leaving it on top of my refrigerator, but I fed it every day. I fed it a little bit of sugar every day and stirred it in, and that's how I kept it alive. So you can leave your fermentation starter out. You do not have to refrigerate it, but if you leave it out and it's warm, you're going to have to feed it every day or every other day to keep it alive, because it's going to work through that sugar a lot faster, where when you keep it in a cold environment, it's going to slow the process down, so it's not as lively and not eating through the sugar as quickly, and so you can keep it for a lot longer. There does come a point with the starter, though, if you let it go too long and you don't feed it. A lot of times you can bring it back if it loses its activity, but there comes a point where it just then becomes wine, and you can't get it back to its more lively state. It stops at that point, and adding sugar into it will then just make a sweet wine, basically. And so yeah, so it's best to keep it alive, use it as much as possible. And if you're not using it, maybe you're taking a break from fermented foods, then be sure to pull it out once a week or so and feed it. Usually it only needs to be fed once a week. Sometimes it can go a whole month and be fine, but it's going to depend on the fruit you have in there and just how active and lively it is to begin with. Okay, another question I get a lot is on vanilla beans. So I've been talking, a lot of my videos I've been talking about extracts, making different types of extracts, vanilla, and using your vanilla extracts. And the people ask me all the time, where do I get my vanilla beans? Well, I haven't bought any in years. In fact, if you look at this is vacuum sealed. This is the one I'm working out of right now. I pull out a few beans when I need it, and then I vacuum seal it back up, and this is from 2015. And so it was in 2015 that I stocked up on a lot. I was buying, every month I would buy another quarter-pound bag of vanilla beans, and I was getting the Frontier brand, and I was getting it through Amazon, through the Subscribe and Save, and it was only costing me $30 for a quarter-pound bag, which is still a lot of money for only a quarter pound. But since then, the price on those has gone up to $100. I actually saw a quarter-pound bag of Frontier vanilla beans, organic, that was $180. So every time I look at it, it's gone up even more. So it's quintupled in price, at least. So it's really, that's why I don't even link to it anymore, because it's so incredibly priced. And it's not the company, it's not Amazon, it's that way all the way across the board. But what I did finally do a little more research again, because personally I don't need any vanilla beans right away, but every once in a while I do try to look to see if I can find them for a better price, so I'll know if I ever am going to need them, because I've got a lot stocked up, and I'm glad that I did that. And there's another good point for prepping people. We've brought it up before, but when you stock up on things now, you're buying tomorrow's food at today's prices, because tomorrow it's going to be a lot more expensive. And so I am so grateful I did that with the vanilla beans when I did. But if you're just getting started into making your own extracts, because extracts anyway, if you buy the extract, the extracts are going to be more expensive than they were as well, because vanilla beans all over have gone up in price. So the best price I've seen so far in my little bit of looking I did was at eBay. You can go to eBay and find a little bit better price it's usually per bean or per 10 beans or per 20 beans. It's usually not by the pound. If you're looking at buying a whole pound, you're talking about paying several $100s for it. So it depends on how much you want to buy at a time. But The best price I've seen so far is on eBay, and then shop around on eBay. Just put in vanilla beans and shop and pay attention to what it actually says. A lot of times, I'll see this everywhere. A lot of times they'll show a big, huge bundle of vanilla beans, but the actual description may only say 5 vanilla beans. So pay attention to that. The standard price I've been seeing across the board is about $15 for 5 beans, and you can find some that's a little bit less, like maybe $12 or $13 for 5 beans. So you're looking at, typically for 10 beans, you're looking at $30. And so on eBay, I found some that were like $21 for 10 beans, and that was the best price I've seen. But there could still be better, so you may have to do some shopping around. I just personally don't have time to look at every place there is out there. I did try to go to one place that specifically just sold vanilla beans, and just like I figured, they were even more expensive than what I saw on Amazon. So I don't recommend going that way, but look, you'll have to look into it for yourself, because to find the best price. So like I said, eBay's the best I've seen. Before I move on from talking about extracts, let's talk a little bit about the extracts I have going. So here is look how dark this is now. If you watched I think in my last this and that video, I'd just started this. And though I did use a wine base, so it had color and darkness, now what you've got going on is the color from the cherries is soaking in there, it is infusing into the extract, and it is a very dark. And it smells and tastes wonderful. So this is going to be really good in making a Black Forest cake, which is what I plan on doing, and using in whatever else it was I was thinking about using it. And I mentioned it in the first video where I first got that going. In the dried apples for making like a dried apple pie or the dried apple topping for the pancakes. I'll go ahead and link to one of those 2 videos up here. Maybe you can find the other one. I'll link to the one for the pancake, because in that one I linked to the dried apple pie recipe. And then here is the vanilla extract that I started using, just my homemade wine and then the glycerin. And I just took I've had this going for probably a good week, and it already has, or maybe it's 2 weeks now. What does it say here? Well, I just put the month and the year. I didn't put the actual date. But anyway, maybe 2 weeks tops it's been going. So it smells really great. It tastes great, and I can see the color of the vanilla actually infusing now. I believe I did use the blackberry wine in this, but and so it was already kind of dark, but I can see the brown now instead of just the red. The brown from the vanilla beans has infused into this, and it's just smelling wonderful. So I do think using the homemade wine is going to be an excellent way, and the glycerin too, to make a really tasty and not quite so expensive, a little bit more, even if you just used homemade wine and left out the glycerin, I think it's going to work really good to make a great vanilla extract or any other kind of fruit extract. Because again, that's what I did here. I used the glycerin in both, and then used the homemade wine, and so much cheaper than buying vodka or any other 80 proof alcohol. And it's healthier too. You know exactly what's going in it, especially if you made the wine yourself. So far, as far as I can tell, these are turning out really great, and I'm very excited about this. So, okay, now today I just came across a comment that someone had left on an older video I did on making jam. Now I believe in that video I was using organic cane sugar, because that's always what I use for making jam. I don't use honey, and the reason I don't use honey whenever I'm doing anything cooked is that honey for us is very expensive, and because we're not currently keeping bees. We hope to out at the property eventually, but we can't do that right now, and even if we did start it now, it'd be a while. So we have to rely on whatever honey. Well, thankfully, Rhonda Welker gave us a jar of honey when we met up with her at the homesteading fair, and I've already halfway done with it. But the other thing is, I want to keep the thing about honey. Besides honey being really expensive, if I'm going to spend that much money on honey, then no rhyme intended there. Then I want to keep it in as raw a state as I can, so I'm getting the most benefits out of the honey for whatever I'm using it in. Well, here was kind of a shocker, and I'd still like to look into this further, but from what I can tell, this is true. So somebody told me on my jam video, I think I'd mentioned, and I know I mentioned it again in the salmonberry jam that I did, about using honey if you want. Well, apparently cooking honey is really bad. It actually goes from turning it into this wonderful thing. I thought cooking it just took out all the benefits. Well, it does more than that. It actually changes it so that then it is actually not at all healthy for you. At least what I've read so far. I do want to do some more research, but until I can, and maybe do a separate video down the road on that, I want to really look into this because I don't trust just one source or even two sources. I did come across it on 3 different sources though, but I'd still like to delve a little bit deeper and then do a separate video. But until then, I look into it for yourself. And if you're cooking with honey, then I recommend you stop until you learn more about it, because if that's the case, then yes, definitely keep your honey raw. You're better off to go with organic cane sugar if that's the case. Just, I know for certain, stay away from your just plain white sugar that's made from genetically modified sugar beets. That's the absolute worst sugar that you can use in anything. So when I'm making jam, anything I cook with, I still stick with the organic cane sugar, and or I use coconut sugar. Coconut sugar is also a good option. It's just not as sweet and it has a little bit different flavor. Sometimes using a blend of half and half can make a real nice flavor. And in certain apple butters and certain types of things, I found that the coconut sugar alone does taste really good. It just depends on what you're using it in. So, but I do recommend the coconut sugar. And then here is this, I got this pile of, well, this is just a single because I still got to finish the other one. I've got it partially done right now. I've been making a bunch of these fingerless gloves. A couple of these are already up on the store. They were selling pretty good. It's summertime now, so obviously sales have slowed down. So what I've been doing is working on other color combinations and just working with some fun yarns and fun ideas like this one here with this. I actually bought some silver and gold thread and crocheted in there. It was a little bit tricky, but crocheted it right into these gloves. And I did just do a video, and I'll link to it right up here on how to make these. So it's my own pattern, so it's for personal use people, my very own pattern that I came up with myself. And I decided, even though I'm selling these on my store, I decided to go ahead and share the pattern with you so that you can then make your own for yourself or for gifts for friends and family. It's just it's a fun and pretty simple pattern to whip up. I do have also another fingerless glove pattern available. It's actually in written form. It's up on my store, and hopefully I'll find time soon to be able, if it's not up there already, which I doubt it will because the summer is just crazy busy, I'm hoping to get some time for those who need a written pattern to actually write this pattern out. And when I do that, that will also go up on the store later on. So you can be watching for that if you prefer a written pattern. But anyway, and other than that, if you don't crochet and aren't even interested in learning how, I do also put these up on my store, and I have a lot of other color ideas I plan on putting up, and one involves pink camel. So some people, I'm not a big pink person, but some people really like pink, and so I plan on putting some of those up too. Okay, and then the last thing I want to mention is that I just brought these herbs in here because these were the handiest ones. I've got some lavender, some pansies, violas, dandelions, red clover. This is a new jar I just started, and some of my homegrown thyme. This is just minor. Okay, and I'm bringing this up because I have a lot of people ask me, there's 2 questions I get, and one is, why don't I hang my herbs to dry? And the other is why, people are interested in buying my home dried herbs. Well, the reason I don't hang my herbs to dry is because I dry a lot. In fact, at the end of the season, I plan on doing a video. I'm going to pull out every jar of home dried herbs and fruits and vegetables and whatever this I've dried, and just give you a visual on everything that I dry throughout the season. So I do most of my dehydrating at this time of the year when we have solar power. We have a good supply of solar power, and I can run my dehydrators. I run 2, sometimes 3 dehydrators at a time. And I have to do it that way to keep up on the great amount of herbs that I'm dehydrating. I can't just hang them around. I don't have the time or the space to deal with that. And otherwise, I do actually have space if I wanted to make racks all through this big rec room, and then I could have herbs filling up the whole thing. But the deal is, it's more than that, is that we live in a pretty humid, when it's summertime especially, it's very humid. And of course, wintertime is just raining anyway. But wintertime we have wood heat, so it dries things out on the inside of the house. So I can hang herbs to dry, but then I just use my my drying rack for that. And I'm not usually drying that much stuff. Besides, I don't have a lot of herbs and green things coming in to dry anyway at this time of the year, at that time of the year. But summertime, like today, I mean, it's raining outside, and when it's hot, then the sun comes out, then all that humidity goes into the air, and it doesn't matter where. I've tried doing it in the greenhouse, I've tried doing it inside. Things do not dry. They just, it can sit for days and days and never dry here, even on the hottest days of summer. So that just doesn't work for us. And also, the other thing is, the reason why I'm not really into selling my herbs is because I do a lot for us. And some of it is to go into my homemade soaps, it goes into my homemade skin cream, and it goes into our food. And I want to make sure we have plenty on hand. Now, I might share some of that with my family, but for the most part, this is all what we do just for us and for my business. And to be able to then have to try to dry extra herbs in order to sell to people is just another thing that I really don't see that where I'd have time to do it, because I cannot even keep up on all the herbs I have just for us. It's really difficult. So I'm just wanted to answer a couple of questions there on why I don't dry this way, or why I don't sell the herbs on my store. Maybe someday I'll get to a point where I can get enough built up that I can start selling some of my excess on the store, but for now, that's just not going to happen. So we'll just stick with selling the herb seeds that I'm able to find the time to collect. So anyway, I hope that answers a few questions and gets you to researching things such as the honey and the vanilla beans and where you can find them. And if, by the way, you find a really good deal, if you find something that's priced better than $22 for 10 beans, let me know, so I can pass that information on and maybe even stock up on some more vanilla beans as soon as I see a decent price. Okay, well, I think that's it. I think I covered everything I was going to talk about today. So that's my this and that for this week. Hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned something new. Thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.